with Philip Callbeck, a former Kentucky Welding Institute student, and he's going to share with us his story and on how he made the 100K Club. So it's nice to meet you, Philip.
Nice to meet you.
Glad you're here, dude.
Thanks
So
for having me.
let's start from the beginning. What was your high school experience like? And then I know that you went to college after high school, and then it kind of didn't work out. So let's just start off like high school, because I don't know anything about you and your high school experience.
Yeah, absolutely. So came into high school from an ag background. I live on a farm back home in Owensboro, Kentucky, is where I'm from originally.
Owensboro.
Yep.
Okay.
Owensboro, so a little bit west of here.
Yeah.
But went into the high school and joined the FFA program back in the day. And
Right.
really got involved with the ag mechanics and the welding and the shop class, as they
Okay.
call it, in the school. And that's where I really started to pick up welding. I was fascinated by it. That's where I learned to, strike my first arc and to run a 60-10 rod or 60-11 rod across the flat plate. Got all that figured out.
Yeah.
And it was really cool just being able to build things or fix things. And so I kind of fell in love with it, and started looking into different options after high school. At the same time, I was interested in the math and the science too. So I decided to go to UK, University of Kentucky, and study engineering, which I'm currently doing right now. So I went there for freshman year of college, and then I said, well, hey, I'm missing the welding. I'm missing getting out in the field, seeing different things. What is something that I can do to maybe further my decision to pursue engineering in college? So I said, well, let me look into KWI a little bit more and see what I can do there. So if we go back a little bit in time, back into senior year of high school, for the first time I visited KWI, I went to the senior welding contest there and had a good time there and got to participate and compete and got I came 8th place, got a scholarship for the school. So then we flashed back forward to that after that freshman year of UK, and I said, well, hey, I've got the scholarship here. Maybe now is the time to go use it and to actually go pursue welding in a little bit more serious form.
So you were in college, and you were like, man, I really miss the physical aspect of doing something with my hands. And then you were like, wait a minute, I still have my scholarship from competing at the welding competition.
Yep.
Okay, so that's really interesting, because you were going for the engineering degree, correct? And it was just kind of just like too much, just like schoolwork and paper, or
yeah, it was a little bit of that. At the same time, I was a state officer with the Kentucky FFA. So between those two things, college and state office, it was a lot of work, a lot of stress, and I needed something to maybe just step back from all of those things and get into something that I really had a passion for deep down, which was welding.
You needed a little break. So
yes,
you were a state officer and going to college at the same time.
Yep.
So that's a pretty heavy workload.
Yep.
And going to KWI was just that 6 months of just you and a piece of metal, and that's all it was.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Absolutely.
Interesting. So, how was your KWI experience? What was challenging about KWI, or what did you feel like you excelled at there? And what advice would you give somebody going there? Just maybe what's your whole KWI experience?
Yep. Absolutely. So I came in, obviously I had a little bit of welding background between working on the farm, fixing things, and of course what I did in the shop program at high school. So that helped out tremendously, was having just that little bit of the basics, being able to strike an arc, keep an arc, maintain that distance and the right travel speed and all that type of stuff. So coming into KWI, that really benefited me when the structural stuff was going on. So flux core, the 60-10, the 70-18, your vertical and your overhead tests, all that stuff really helped me. Then when I moved into pipe, it was like, well, this is a whole different world.
Right.
We never even heard of pipe in shop class. It was always just running beads on a flat plate.
Yeah, and most high schools, they don't mess with that, which is totally okay, because in high school, if you can focus on the basics, then that's going to help you when you get to pipe, you know what I mean? But so that's expected when you're going to welding school, because it's like, well, this is a whole new thing. I have to go around it,
Yep. So I was actually pretty fortunate. So when I started pipe, there was a fellow state officer too, Sam Johnson.
Yes.
You all know him, yeah. He actually, spent about 45 minutes to an hour, my first day on pipe, just sitting there helping me figure out how to feed wire.
Really?
How to get the walls broken down, things like that, and get the root, the way that you want it.
Now, how long had Sam been out in the industry? Maybe like a year or something?
I think it wasn't that long. Yeah, it was a year. Maybe
Had he been in
St.
St. Croix yet? Because he was down there with me working.
I don't know, actually, no.
Okay, so maybe he was just kind of fresh out.
Yeah.
But he was a state officer like you, so you all knew each other from that.
Yeah, so we kind of bonded over that.
Yeah.
And I think at the time, which I don't know, he might be still doing this, but he was pursuing a degree in construction management, I think is what he was working on.
When he was in college, then he dropped out too or took a break because it was, again, a little too much for some people. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Okay.
So he really helped me out and got me on the straight and narrow and things like that. And that was really beneficial for myself, getting the basics and the fundamentals in pipe welding.
Right.
So it was a really good experience, and I highly recommend it to anybody that's interested in welding.
Gotcha.
As far as advice goes,
right.
maybe some things I wish I knew. Number one, from the day one, the get-go, form a really strong relationship with your teachers there, because that's everything. When you need help, they're going to be the ones that you should go to, not your buddy, not YouTube. They're you paid the money, you're here.
Right.
Use them. That's their job. So
yes.
So that's the first piece of advice, and then I guess the second is sometimes it's hard to talk to people and whatever but just get out of your shell, get to know the people around you, your friends, network, get their names, their numbers, and really you should have that pretty much everybody that you're around by the first week. If you don't, you're not doing it the right way.
Yeah.
Because you need those later on when it comes to finding jobs or moving around or learning different things.
Right.
So.
And that's the cool thing about KWI. I go around and talk to high schools, and I tell them, I'm like, the community college is okay. If that's for you, that's all right. But where you're going to lack at the community college is the networking aspect, because you're going to be with people who live in that area. When you go to KWI, you're around people from Alaska, California, Montana, Florida, Oklahoma, New Jersey. So all over the country, and like you're talking about, the biggest thing in the welding industry is networking.
Yep.
And I'm sure you can right now, and I can as well, pick up my phone and be on a job Monday.
Yep.
Just because of the work ethic, the high speed, and just what you learn at KWI about being in the industry is a little bit more top-notch than most programs, right? So I agree with you there. Just, if you're not networking while you're at KWI, you're doing it wrong.
Absolutely.
So, that's a super important aspect of being in the welding industry is networking.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
And even like now back at UK, I'm obviously enjoying what I'm doing at UK. I'm really excited to keep pursuing that engineering field. But sometimes it's kind of frustrating because you look down at your phone and your buddy shoots you a text like, "Hey, I've got a job coming up here,
dude,
and it pays such and such."
And you're in college, man, like just
working
chilling,
whatever, and it's like, "Oh my gosh, this looks so cool," but I can't just leave for 5
Right.
weeks, and come back.
I know.
It doesn't work like that.
So how is that being in college with other classmates? Because here's the cool thing: in the welding industry, welders, fitters, everybody hates engineers because they engineer stuff poorly. So I think that's going to benefit you because you're going to have a background understanding of what you're engineering and how to make it easier for people. You get what I'm saying? Most engineers don't do the legwork that you did in learning and getting on your hands and feet in the field and working. So what's it like being in school with those guys? A lot of people don't have a clue, or do you see yourself as ahead of them in terms of thinking about engineering? Or
no, I think on the practical side of engineering, absolutely, it's 100% true. Whenever I was one of the places I worked, we built a whiskey distillery in Beaver Dam, Kentucky, which is pretty close to Owensboro. And on that job, we did pretty much everything. So we started with the structural side of things. It's kind of more in a fab shop setting. Welding out columns, building platforms, mezzanines, things like that. Then we took all the stuff that we fabricated in the shop, in the house, took it out to the field, did all the iron working, erection, installed it, all that type of stuff. So I got to see that aspect of it, the structural side. And then also, once that was all complete, we started on more of the pipe side. So setting pumps, pipe fitting, welding, setting tanks, things like that. Anything to do with structural or the pipe side was on that job.
So you got the full spectrum.
I got the full spectrum.
So how long was that job?
That was about a 6-month job. Yeah,
that's a great job.
Pretty
too.
much
close to home.
Yes, very.
So you was home every night?
Yeah, I was home every night.
Wow.
I got really lucky,
That is awesome. So was that your first job?
That was my first job.
Wow,
yep.
dude.
The shop was based in Owensboro. I'm from Philpott, but I say Owensboro.
Right, you got to. No one knows where that little small town
25-minute drive to the shop, and then from there we meet up, get in the truck, and drive out to Beaver Dam, which is about 45 minutes south of Owensboro. And
interesting.
But so coming back to UK then with that experience has definitely helped me.
Okay.
So last semester I took a class called Statics, which is basically a class that's the study of forces at equilibrium. So it's you could maybe look at it as like the ABCs of structural engineering, or the ABCs of mechanical engineering. It's the very first real engineering class at the University of Kentucky. And having that sort of industry experience and knowing how things should look, how things should be designed, what's right, what's wrong, and getting a sense of maybe how big a column should be or how big a beam should be really, really helped me understand some of the more theoretical concepts in that class. So I think definitely has helped tremendously in terms of the practical and even the theoretical side of engineering. So.
Right, just understanding it from the blueprints and the creation of the documents to build something, and then thinking about the guys in the boots and welding and fitting and everything, creating it from the ground up. So and you get the full picture.
There was definitely things on that job, because I was working, as a welder, obviously, certain things that if I was the engineer, I would have changed.
For sure.
And so I definitely understand that frustration and that maybe that lack of communication sometimes that happens between the trades and the white collar or the engineering workers, because it's easy to sit on a computer and draw whatever you want. Anybody can do that.
Right.
And there's 10 or 15, maybe even 20 different ways you can design something. But there's only like one or two correct ways or most efficient ways or easy ways to do it. And so just having like the things that I got frustrated with in the field, having a knowledge of those definitely will help me later on when it comes to designing things, or because I wouldn't want to design something knowing that someone's going to have a heck of a job trying to put it together.
They're going to be in a bind.
A tight spot.
Right. And how long have you been out of KWI now?
About a year and a month.
So what are the next couple jobs you went on after that?
So I did a couple, maybe small jobs, just fixing people's trailers, things like that.
Okay.
And then I, towards the end of that 6-month period with that initial job, I actually got a contract with some seed companies that are local to me.
Okay.
So they were installing basically a seed crushing and a seed treating facility. So building lots of hoppers and setting up machinery, maybe more of the millwright side of it, and sometimes setting motors.
Yeah. Just doing everything.
Sort of kind of a general spectrum. But there was a lot of welding.
Right.
And then the good thing about that was I was actually able to leverage some of the skills I learned at UK, the engineering side, to design these hoppers.
Really?
So they basically said, hey, this is what we want. Here's the building, here's the barn that we have to do it in.
Right.
Figure it out. So I had to kind of spend a lot of time on the computer laying things out and drawing things up, and then leveraging my different skills that I've picked up over the time to put things together.
And what was the whole experience like leaving college to come to KWI? So like how like the financial aspect of it, I'm curious like how much the schooling was for engineering, because I didn't go to college, so I'm just curious on that aspect of it, and what your thought process was going to college for a year and then coming to KWI and working for a year and a half and then going back. And like, how is being a welder through the Kentucky Welding Institute helping you out financially with the college? Because college isn't expensive.
Very expensive. Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Share with us that whole endeavor.
Yeah. So sure. So I was pretty fortunate actually. Whenever I graduated high school, I was selected for an interview for the Otis A. Singletary Scholarship at the University of Kentucky.
Okay.
So that's their, maybe you would say, like, I don't know the best way to put it, but it's their largest academic financial scholarship. So it basically covers 2 years of housing and then all 4 years of tuition. So I was, pretty well off to begin with.
Right.
But I still had those 2 years of housing to pay, and then if I was to do a master's, which I plan to do, a master's in civil engineering afterwards, that would have been all out of pocket, and so really, besides just my passion for welding and wanting to learn more about it and wanting to maybe further my engineering career by picking up that skill, there's also that financial aspect and making $100K and making that money welding has really helped me out. So basically, with that, I've pretty much paid for my entire education.
Right.
And I'm not sure if it'll cover the whole master's program, but I know it's covered what it costs for me to go to KWI and what it costs for me to house for 2 years at UK.
And let's say you need more money, you can just go back and get on another job.
Yep.
Right. You can always go back to it. That's what I tell people. I'm like, just get a good trade under your belt. For me, it was welding. For you, it was welding. And if you want to pursue something else or want to do something else, you can always go back to welding.
Right.
Now, like, let's say you enjoy welding and you want to stay doing that. It's totally fine. But you can use welding to get to other places, and then if you need anything, you can go back to it because it's always going to be there.
Yeah, absolutely. So we kind of talked about this earlier with being at UK and seeing these notifications come up on your phone. I got a job here, I got a job there, and it's frustrating.
Right.
So I'm really looking forward to the summertime. When I'm not at UK, when I have summer holidays or summer break.
Yeah.
I actually have an opportunity that I'm currently kind of working to develop over in the Netherlands, working for a company and doing some welding over there. So during those summer months, especially, is really when I'm trying to get out and hit it hard and build up some more capital, in my piggy bank and set myself up for later years. So it's definitely a good skill to have, for being able to jump around and move between different fields. It's very, very in demand and very lucrative too, I would say. So
yeah, and what would be your advice for somebody who's in college and maybe it isn't for them, or maybe they are needing a break? Would you say this is something that they should really look into?
Yeah. So basically, if we kind of look at how it actually worked, maybe on the registrar side of scheduling classes and things like that. So they already, in the engineering program, really, really highly recommend, they don't require, but they very highly recommend that you do internships and co-ops during your time at college, just to get some actual real-world experience, because you can't learn everything in a classroom. No matter how long you study, no matter how many textbooks you read, there's always something new that you won't see, and you're going to have to get out and see it in the field.
Hands-on experience.
Hands-on experience is king, absolutely. So there's actually a class, the one that I took was considered a co-op because it was during the semester. It's just a cooperative education class. Basically, you're still fully enrolled at UK, but you're taking maybe sort of a co-op break or an internship break. So you're not actually at the university.
You didn't leave either.
You didn't leave, right? You're still a student. You still have all the rights and the IDs and everything in the system, just as it always was. But you take off that semester and go work. Most people, use that time to work at an engineering firm because ultimately that's where they're wanting to go is into engineering. Yeah. And I plan to do that too. Here, maybe next year, maybe the year afterwards. But I would like to try work an actual engineering internship or an actual engineering co-op into my years at school.
Well, and you could set yourself up before you get there really well.
Yes.
So you could go ahead, pay for everything, get everything done for it, and then when you're doing the internship, you don't have to worry about money so much.
Absolutely, yeah. So, but I really wanted, when I had that opportunity, in the beginning years, before the classes got too difficult, before the life started to move on and things started to get too hectic, to use that opportunity to go ahead and pick up these welding skills. Because then, when the opportunity arises later on, it's easy. I can jump right into it. I can jump right back into engineering. I can jump around versus trying to do it later on. And so, I've talked to a couple classes at UK about this concept, and they've all been pretty interested in it too, because they've never had a student actually leave and not go to an engineering co-op or not go to a real workplace, sit down 9 to 5 type of job. It was very different for them even, and so they were pretty interested to hear my story and how it all worked for me. So one thing I recommended was doing it early, when things are calm and classes are
you have time
easy. You have time, right?
Yeah, exactly. You don't have kids, you don't have a family yet, you don't have a lot of responsibility, and you doing that. If there's anybody in college right now that is kind of maybe wanting to take a different step or learn a different skill, they could probably go the same route that you went.
Absolutely.
With the co-op internship and come learn to weld at KWI and then set themselves up.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah.
So, that's not too bad of an idea. Let's say you accidentally, get into college and you realize it's not what you want, and then the person could get a co-op, come to KWI, like you did, weld for about a year, and then go back and pay for the rest of their schooling.
Yep, absolutely. And even if you're, like you said, you mentioned coming into college and you're not maybe 100% sure what you want to do, do it early. Take a co-op and get out in the field and really see what it's like, because that's the only way to know if you're going to like what you're studying.
Right.
Whenever I was in high school, I had this great idea, like I'm going to do, basically environmental engineering. I love anything to do with waterways, water systems, culverts, creek maintenance, things like that. It's a really fascinating thing to me. And I ended up working for a company in Owensboro, an engineering firm, and I just hated it. I loved the people I was working with, but I didn't really like it, as much as I thought I was going to.
Right.
And so just having that, intuition or having that knowledge from that to say I'm not going to study that when I come to college is great.
Right.
So, but even if you get into college and you're still unsure, taking that time early, figuring things out is really, really beneficial in my opinion. So.
Gotcha. So what does the near future look like for you, and what is your long term? What's your far out plan look like if you've made it that far yet?
Yeah. So I guess for the near term, so I'm studying biosystems and civil engineering at university. Okay. So on the civil side, I'm focusing on structural engineering, and then on the biosystem side, I'm focusing on food and bioprocessing. So ultimately, I'd like to work in sort of the distillery industry. I built a distillery back in Beaver Dam.
So you know about it.
Yeah, so I know about it. That kind of influenced that decision. I really like what I was working with, between the structural and the piping systems. It has it all. So I really grew a passion for that.
Okay.
So that's kind of the near term. Mixed into all of that, I plan to get my master's in structural or master's in civil engineering, to work as a structural engineer. Okay. And so that's all kind of here in the next 2, 3, 4 years, that type of span is moving in that industry. Long term, I really would like to see myself using not just the engineering skills that obviously I'm going to college for, but bringing back in those welding skills that I've picked up and maybe opening up like a fabrication company, or even just hitting the road and traveling around and
just hitting a job with your family or something.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Go do a job in Montana, hang out there in Glacier for 3 weeks.
Yep.
Gotcha.
And whether that's me actually doing welding, or whether that's more of maybe like a project management role, or as a foreman or something like that. I can having that flexibility to move around is really, really awesome. So.
And with your background, in engineering and welding, it's a lot easier to get into those project manager or foreman or whatever positions, you know what I mean, if you choose so. And sometimes it's nice just to be a welder and not worry about anything.
Sometimes it is, just show up and you just do your job the best you can and go home. And that's, it's nice, definitely. So.
Gotcha. Yeah. Well, that's really cool, and we're glad you came to KWI and was able to get on the 100K club. That's
Thank you. Yeah.
A big achievement, because a lot of people don't believe that it's possible, and it's very possible in the welding industry to make 100K your first year out of welding school, because the U.S. is short 270,000 welders this year. So there's a big demand for welders, and just having more than one skill in welding. Just being a welder, like there's a lot of places that can teach you how to weld, and they'll teach you how to weld and throw you out the door. But the only way to make more money is by providing value to the marketplace. And how do you provide value? Is by having more skills.
Right.
So having an engineering degree and welding is putting you above a lot of other welders out there. Also, with the training programs and certifications that KWI has on top of that. So you are a very dangerous person in the workplace, if you know what that means. Like you're going to be on the job sooner. You're going to be the last one off the job. So you're a very a monster of an individual in the industry, because a lot of people just weld. So if a person can get more skills than just welding, we provide a lot, but also maybe use your welding to pay for some other learning programs or something else, engineering or mechanical or anything in that aspect, to get you more money out in the industry. Because you don't just want to stop at being a welder. You could use the money welding to get somewhere else.
Absolutely. Yes, sir.
Yep. You're obviously a pretty intuitive person, and you do a lot of research. What led you to choose KWI? We're not going to be crazy biased, and we're not going to tell everybody, that we're the only one out there. Obviously, there's other places to learn how to weld, but what led you to the conclusion of choosing KWI? Because there's plenty of other options. There's community college, and there's other, welding schools across the nation. But what helped you, or how did you hone down on KWI?
Yeah, absolutely. So, obviously, with anything, you should do some research and think about it, because it is a lot of money, wherever you go, whether you choose KWI or MWI. I think there's one down in Houston I was looking at too, maybe South Coast Welding Academy. I think they have the whole WeldTube YouTube channel.
So just a bunch of other welding schools.
A bunch of different other welding schools that are that are very good. Get you in the industry, make you very competent as a welder, and really have the things that you need to be successful. So when it came down to making a decision, part of the thing that factored in was the time, right? So I was at UK at the time. I knew whatever I wanted to do, I wanted to both go to school and also then use those skills. Because what's the point of going to school and then just going back to UK and not actually using what you learned?
Right.
So I was looking into different programs, and so that kind of immediately ruled out the community college system. That's a 2-year program. You get a couple certifications, whatever, but it's such a long period of time just to get, in my eyes, so little.
And you're not just welding;
right.
You're doing other stuff
doing
as
other
well.
Things, you're doing classes, things like that, so you're not really just getting right into the welding. And so I started looking at the different ways that schools were set up, and I came across KWI, and of course I had the scholarship for it too. But I came across the way they schedule things, So the very the time spent in the classroom is, I'll say, it's short, but it's to the point. And it's very efficient. They teach you the things that you need to know. There's not any of this extra fluff that you're never going to use, and they get you all these different credentials and certifications and a variety of different stuff. OSHA, MSHA, rigging and signaling, Basic Plus, toxicology card, TWIC card, any of that stuff that you're going to need later on in the industry. They teach you there in the class. They get you certified. They take the tests to make sure that you're competent in those extra skills just outside of welding too.
Right.
And then that, like I said, is a very short period. So you get out of the class and you're immediately into the shop welding, which is really what most people when they come to school, they want to weld.
Right.
They don't want to be sitting in a classroom all day and doing whatever and learning about the theory of welding and things like that, because the best way to learn is to flip the hood down and just strike an arc and figure it out. Right. You can talk for a long time about the theory, but when it comes time to weld, sometimes those things don't exactly line up. So I really wanted a school that was going to get me out in the shop as much as possible, and then also provide some additional benefits, right? So one thing that I really liked about KWI was you have your 8-hour shift or whatever that you pay for, but then if the booths are open, you can weld all day long.
12, 16 hours.
12, 16 hours.
Right, and a lot of people don't take us up on that.
Yes.
Just maybe because they're lazy or they don't want to, but you can get a lot done in a short period of time and move on to other alloys, other materials, learn a bunch of other things that are past the set curriculum because you can go at your own pace.
Absolutely. And even if you don't want to spend 16 hours, right? Even if you spend 12,
right.
You do your 8 hours of welding, with your instructors, taking tests, whatever, and then maybe the next 2, 3, 4 hours you spend prepping pipe or prepping plate, getting things ready for the next day. So whenever you get into the shop, you got your bucket with you. You already got all your stuff in there. All you got to do is tack it up on the arm, and you're ready to weld.
Right.
You're not really wasting time cutting pipe and things like that.
Right.
But then also on that side of cutting pipe too, there's some schools. Oh, what's that? There's one out west.
There's several of them out west.
Several, yeah. But there's different ways that they have you prepare pipe and things like that. But I really liked how KWI was all done by hand.
Right.
And so you really get to learn different fit-ups, different ways to bevel the pipe, certain tips and tricks to make you go faster.
Right.
And then, of course, in the field, you're not
going to have to prep it.
You're not going to get a perfect bevel every single time.
Right.
You're going to be in a bind sometime, a big gap, a tight gap, messed up bevel, high, low, all these different things. And so when you do it by hand and when you're learning, you can kind of sometimes intentionally mess things up so that you can adjust to them and learn how to do it. So and then, of course, you have the instructors who are fresh out of the field. They've dealt with all these things. They see the current industry as it is.
Yes.
And so you're basically looking straight through them, straight into the industry. So if you have questions about how to deal with a bad fit up or a bad gap or whatever it might be, they've seen it all, so they can help you. So I really like that aspect about KWI too. So those are just some of the reasons why I sat down. I said time, what they offer, and then of course the instructors too. Really helped shape my decisions.
Just looking at the bigger picture and the what are you going to get for the whole package?
Yes, absolutely.
Gotcha. Now, another funny thing about your situation is you're an FFA state officer, and we've had a couple state officers come to the Kentucky Welding Institute, and they've all made the 100K club.
Yep.
So you being in the FFA and being a state officer, how has that helped you to go through KWI and then go out into the industry? Are there skills that you learned in the FFA that have helped you with KWI? And what were those?
Yeah, absolutely. So during my time, both as a state officer, of course, and then also in high school, being an FFA member and president of the chapter and all those different leadership roles in high school, there's a lot of times where I had to do public speaking. So that was the big number one, I can put on that list is learning how to speak in front of people and get comfortable with doing interviews or get comfortable with meeting people, getting out of your, just meeting strangers, even just going up to someone random and shaking their hand and introducing yourself.
Right.
Things like that are so, overlooked or so, maybe not valued anymore by society, for whatever reason, has really, really, really helped me, both at KWI, meeting my instructors, meeting the people I'm living with, things like that, but then also beyond KWI, in the welding field, talking to engineers or talking to foremen or talking to other welders or other fitters or whatever that I was working with,
right.
Being able to communicate with them has really helped. And then now that I'm back at UK too, those skills that I picked up through FFA have really translated, and benefited me here at UK too. So, and then I guess some other things, that I picked up at FFA, obviously the work ethic. That's a big thing we kind of touched on a little bit ago with extra time spent in the booth and things like that. I was messing around in the shop class and things like that, building smokers and fixing trailers, and so I really, got an appreciation for, sometimes, stuff happens, things break, and being able to put the, pull yourself up by the bootstraps kind of mentality and get up. It might be cold outside, it might be nasty, it might be raining, but sometimes somebody's got to do it, and so, having that mentality of, if I can do it, if I can be the one, that's a very powerful and a very lucrative sort of mindset to have. So that whole thing about work ethic and just willpower and getting things done really, really helped me. That all came from FFA. So.
Gotcha. And, being in the FFA, like, there's a lot of people that might say that it doesn't translate over to welding, but it does really well, just like, you've stated. Like, you can come from an FFA background and do really well at KWI. You can also not come from an FFA background and do really well. But, would you suggest that someone get into the FFA to maybe help them out at KWI, or do you think there's a correspondence there, like
Absolutely.
Just in general?
Yeah, I definitely think there's a correspondence. Even for people that, I'm from a farming background, so, I was kind of maybe biased joining FFA when I didn't really know a whole lot about it.
Right.
But now that I've gone through the whole, cycle of FFA and I've learned about it, I absolutely would recommend it to anybody.
Right.
Even if you're not on a farm, even if you have nothing to do with agriculture or welding or crop science or anything like that, just the skills that you pick up, when it comes to things you use at KWI. So running power tools, knowing about PPE, personal safety, just being able to work with others, teamwork, things like that are really important. So whether you're not really directly learning about welding or whether it's something else, there's lots of things you can pick up that are often overlooked, some basic things, that'll really help you out. For one, like being able to run a grinder, from the get-go, walking in, being able to run a grinder, being able to use an oxyacetylene torch, those types of things, understanding how they work, how to set the valves. Yeah. That's all stuff that you'll learn, through FFA or through your shop program at your high school, and it really, really translates, very well when you jump into KWI.
Gotcha. So hopefully you guys like this video. We'll be putting out more videos on our YouTube channel, so subscribe to that. And also check out our website. We have links, and we also have shop for clothing and a virtual tour. Until next time, see you there.